There were a number of presentations on final results of the phase 4 Teri-PRO trial. This was a global trial that entered 1,000 patients that were going to start on teriflunomide, half from the United States, half from outside the United States, no control group. They followed the patients very closely for the next year with a particular emphasis on patient-reported outcomes, or PROs, and treatment satisfaction. They also followed things like quality of life. They looked at relapses. They looked at patient self-report of disability. The good news is that patients did very well for the year. They were very happy. They reported that they were very pleased with the drugs, with the teriflunomide. They had about 7% globally that were on the 7 milligram dose. Of course, that's just from the United States. They had two groups. They had patients who switched from a variety of other disease-modifying therapies to teriflunomide, and then they had patients that were treatment-free for at least 2 years before the switch. High satisfaction in both groups that was maintained throughout the year. Very little in the way of side effects, so that's very reassuring. The rate of seeing liver enzyme ALT abnormalities was extremely low, and satisfaction was as high 1 year out, 48 weeks, as in the first 4 weeks after starting the medication. There are a couple of things. When you talk about phase 4, you're now talking about real life. You're talking about individuals with MS that are going to be started on the treatment. No worry about age, no worry about strict inclusion-exclusion criteria. So you're getting a slice of real life as you open up the drug to use. And it was interesting. There was a different use in the United States versus outside the United States. So that was interesting in and of itself. But I think this is extremely reassuring that there was no new issues that arose as you opened up and were really very free about who you were going to start the medication on, and that this was a very well tolerated a drug in this 1,000 patient study, pretty much free rein with regard to who the doctor thought would be a good candidate for teriflunomide. Very, very reassuring that no new issues arose. Very high patient satisfaction. Disability seemed to be quite maintained throughout the year, and good results in switchers as well as, treatment-naive patients. Interestingly enough, the U.S. seemed to be using teriflunomide in older, in more disabled patients, and in those that had MS further, whereas you were seeing kind of an earlier group, a less disabled group, lower on the EDSS. That's quite interesting. I don't know the exact explanations for that, but that's an interesting finding. It did not. You had great satisfaction if you analyzed, the group was analyzed as a whole, but also looking at US versus outside the US, and identical results, basically. Absolutely no new issues whatsoever. The rate of stopping because of an adverse event was very low, in the 6 or 7% range. It's exactly what had been foretold in the clinical trials. The hair thinning was seen, very rare to stop because of that. The liver enzyme issue is even lower than you might think. It was lower than in the pivotal trials. So in real life, this doesn't really seem to be a major issue at all. So no surprises whatsoever, which is reassuring. That's what you want to hear. No issue with infections, etc. I think this is very reassuring for the practitioners to say, here was a real life experience with 1,000 patients followed for a year. High patient satisfaction, very great tolerability, nice quality of life results, and the drug seemed to preserve people for the year at exactly their level of disability, which is very reassuring. That's exactly what we want. There is no the drug for MS. We have 14 distinct approved disease-modifying therapies, and they're all fitting into different niches, and this is the bottom line, that there are multiple factors in selecting the best drug for an individual patient that will be very individualized. patient comorbidity, their lifestyle, their perceptions, their willingness to take risk, their MS disease process, what's their, how active is it clinically, MRI, what's their prognostic profile, and then drug factors. What are the side effects, the tolerability, what's the degree of monitoring? So we're really kind of fitting a niche. We do not have, at this point in time, meaningful biomarkers that can tell us this is the best mechanism of action agent, and this can tell us these genes changed, this is the change in the immune response, you're responding, you're not, we need to move on to another agent. Unfortunately, we don't have such handy biomarkers yet. People are working on that. Hopefully we may in the future.